Food 101. Food, people. Let's talk about food. And today I have my special guest. She is executive chef and founder of the Blind Kitchen, none other than Miss Debra Erickson. Miss Debra, welcome to Food 101.
Oh, Daniel, thank you for having me. I love talking food.
Yes, food, people. And if you miss our episode with Miss Debra on Food on Book 101 review, please do listen to it, or please do watch us on all the social media from YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn, and X. We have an episode over there about food. So today, Miss Deborah, let's talk about the 4 fears of cooking with vision loss.
Okay, so Daniel, there are definitely, since I've started this company and I used to teach blind and visually impaired people how to cook, there are definitely four fears that come forward. The first one is fear of cutting yourself, of course, the fear of burning yourself, and then there's the fear of embarrassing yourself, either by looking messy and knocking things over and disorganized and I can't find this, I don't know where I put this, to presentations of your food. Like if I'm going to give you a plate of food and you can see it and I can't, are you going to find it attractive? And there are definitely strategies and tools to help people with vision loss to be able to produce very nice presentations. But the fourth fear, which is probably the most important and the most impactful for a lot of people, is the fear of making people sick because you undercook their poultry, their chicken or their turkey, or you undercook their seafood or shellfish or their steak, where you fear you're going to make them sick. So what do? You if I you're my guest in my home and I like you and I don't want to kill you, I will, cook the chicken, and what I'll probably do, or the beef, I'll probably overcook it because I don't want to kill you. I'd rather overcook the food. And if you're wanting to cook nicely, especially something like chicken breasts, which can be very dry, you just want them to get to 165 degrees. That's it. You don't want to overcook it. But if I can't see to know if the juices are running clear or if it's still pink in the middle, then I'm probably going to cook it longer just to err on the safe side. But there are tools out there and strategies, and that tool is very simple. It's a talking thermometer. Instant read, probe thermometer, put it in the food, count to 7, and then press a button and it'll tell me the temperature. I don't need to be able to see pink or juices or anything like that. It'll tell me exactly where it's at.
Miss Deborah, we salute you for bringing your talents to the
Thank you.
world. Which of these fears is most common, and why do you think that is?
So I think probably the most common fear is fear of burning yourself, because if you're so if you're cooking on a stovetop, there's no barrier between you and that hot pan on the stove. If you're baking something in the oven, once you close the door, you get the food safely in, it's preheated, then there's a barrier between you, and you aren't going to accidentally get burnt if you touch the oven door. It's just not going to happen that way. Stovetop is much more scary. The other is cutting yourself, but there are so many tools and techniques to get around that. So I would just say cooking on top of the stove is probably the biggest fear, especially a glass top stove that I get from people.
Miss Deborah, how does these fears differ from between those born with vision loss versus those who lost sight later in life?
That's a really good question. So I was diagnosed at 28. So I drove, I had children, I cooked, and I think the fears don't really differ. But you know what's interesting, Daniel, is that I found that people with vision loss tend to burn themselves or cut themselves less because we concentrate. We know we
Yes.
can't see. We're not going to glance at the TV. We're not gonna glance at the person we're talking with and get distracted. We know we're in a potentially harmful situation. And so we pay attention to it. I think more than I think people with vision get cut more and burn themselves more.
What are the biggest safety risks in cooking with vision loss, and how can they be mitigated?
Well, so like I talked about, centering a pan, making sure your pan's on the heat source when you're on the stovetop. How do you know if it's not slightly off? On a gas top stove, it's a little easier. You've got those cast iron platforms. So you're going to know a bit. You're going to know also if you have an electric coil stove that if your pan is tilting to the side, it's probably not on the center. But the glass top is the hardest one. So I think it's about just knowing techniques and strategies. So when I am cooking on my stovetop, 90% of the time, what first of all, I'm going to solve all my cooking problems before I turn on the stove. I'm going to get all the food I need. If I need soy sauce versus fish sauce versus hot sauce versus Worcestershire, I am not going to have the stove top on, listening to the food sizzle in the pan while I'm in the refrigerator because it got moved around by accident and now I don't know which bottle is which. I'm going to have all of those problems solved. So I think for a lot of people, if you can just solve your problems before you turn your stove on, and I actually heard an Iron Chef talk about this. He said, "Don't start to cook before you're ready to cook." And I think that was excellent advice.
Definitely. Excellent advice. How do you teach someone to handle knives or hot surfaces confidently?
Yeah, good question. So when I did I worked in a culinary kitchen, and I was the only blind person that had applied for it. But there were people working there long before I was, and they were all required to wear something called a cut glove or cut resistant glove. It's relatively thin. It's got four fingers and a thumb, and you put it on the hand holding the food. And it's helpful when you're cutting like a carrot or potato or something like that. But where it really comes in handy, I do not know of a single cook who has, with vision, who has not left their knuckle skin when they're grating foods on a box grater. And it's not because the box grater is exceptionally complicated, but it is weird. They have four sides, they're angled, they have different numbers of blades and different shapes of blades. So when you're grating something like cheese or carrot or potatoes, whatever you're cooking, if you happen to make contact between your fingers and that grate, by the time your brain gets the information that unexpected contact has been made, you're already going to have left some skin in the food. You're going to be hurt. If you're wearing the cut glove and you're grating, when it makes unexpected contact, you get that extra second where you just stop. You say, "Oh, I didn't know that was going to happen." And you stop, and you're not going to be hurt. And it's the same thing if I'm cutting the potato or the carrot. If all of a sudden I'm cutting and all of a sudden I feel contact between the blade and the side of my finger or my thumb, I'm just going to stop. And if I had not been wearing that glove, that then before my brain would get the information that I've made contact, it'd be too late. I'd already be cut. So that is a game changer for the blind community in terms of, and as you can tell when I talked about it, insurance companies required it for people that could see perfectly well. So it's tools like that that they're simple, but they make a huge difference.
What adaptive tools have proven most effective for safe kitchen independence?
Ah, so there's safety versus efficiency. So there's a couple of things. So the cut gloves for sure. We have something called heat gloves. Most people know them as of gloves. They've got four fingers and a thumb. They've got a couple of layers of cotton or a cotton polyester blend. But what makes them so heat resistant and blind friendly is number one, if you're using the traditional quilted mitts or gloves, they're very thick. They're quilted, they offer excellent protection against heat, but there's no tactile information. They're thick and bulky. And once you commit to it, you're kind of stuck. But with the gloves, they have silicone designs all over the front and the back. And what that does is when I go to lift a heavy pan or a pot or whatever, that's a non-slip thing. Unless the pan is oily, which you shouldn't put an oily pan in the oven or on the stovetop if it's oily on the outside, you're just going to have a much more firm commitment and a firm grip on it. So those are excellent tools to say, "Oh, I have vision loss. Hey, let me have more information through my fingers." And those are tools that help you to do that.
Miss Deborah, let's talk about the practical techniques. What your step-by-step method for organizing a kitchen for low no vision?
So this is a longer answer than you have time for, but what I would say is number 1, things have to be in a predictable location. So if you live with someone that has vision, they have to agree to put things back. But there are things that are so simple, such as like a lazy Susan, the little turntable. So when I go in
Yes.
my cupboard and I want to get something, it's always going to be in back of the cupboard. That is just the way it works. Even if it's the last thing I used and put away, it's going to be in the back. So instead of me reaching over a bunch of cans and bottles or and then pulling it forward when I think I found it, knocking stuff over, that's going to be a disorganized mess. With like a 10-inch Lazy Susan, I can just put everything around there. And if the can that I want or the bottle is not in the front, I just have to do a little rotation and now it'll be in the front. And all the stuff that was in the front is in the back. So organization can be with different bins and things like that. Just things that are predictable. That's what's important.
Miss Deborah, how can someone master measuring ingredients without sight?
Ah, good question. So liquid ingredients are the hardest. Measuring a cup of flour, if you know that you've got the full cup, you wipe the excess off with your fingers, you've got a level cup of flour, you're good. Or if you're going to weigh the flour, you have a talking scale. You can say, okay, I want 4 ounces of flour instead of by volume, by weight. No right answer or wrong answer, they're just different. But with the liquid measurements, it's really interesting because let's say I'm trying to measure a teaspoon of vanilla. Vanilla is about $8 for 2 ounces right now. It's very expensive and you don't want to waste it. So the old way would be I'd get my measuring spoon, however I'd know it was 1 ounce, I would pour and check and pour and check and pour and check. And by the time I knew it was full, I only knew it because it would spill, it would overflow, and I'd have that waste. What we do is we have measuring cups and spoons, and all of them on the handles have stainless steel bumps. So if it's a third of a cup or a third of a teaspoon, you're going to count 3 stainless steel bumps on the handle. It stays through a dishwasher or hand washing. If you're doing a quarter of a cup or a quarter of a teaspoon, I'm just going to run my finger on that stainless steel handle and count there are 4 dots. Okay, that's a quarter cup, quarter teaspoon. But what makes the wet different from the dry is the wet are shaped like ladles. They are manufactured with the handle facing up. So if I'm going to want a teaspoon of vanilla, it comes with a little spouted pitcher and a little funnel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that little spouted pitcher, I'm going to put it on my work tray, and I'm going to put that ladle slash teaspoon in there. And so it's going to be in there. And then I'm going to pour the vanilla into the cup and make sure that the spoon cavity is now overflowed. So that way, when I go to lift it, and think about it, when you go to serve soup or anything like that, any kinds of liquid in our society, we use a ladle. And I can lift up a spoonful of soup and give somebody a cup of soup with no problem, where it'll take 8 if I use a flatter spoon it'll take 8 trips and I'll probably drip all over the place. So ladles are very efficient ways to transfer liquids. So now in this little cup in front of me, I know because it's under liquid that if I lift it and I don't hear anything spilling out, transfer it to my target bowl, I have a level teaspoon for sure because it was just under fluid. But now I've still got this little cup and it's got the fluid in the bottom of it, the overflow. I just take that little pitcher that we send, I put it in the mouth of the vanilla bottle. So now instead of trying to direct that overflow to a bottle opening about as big as my pinky, now it's about more than 3 inches. And I can just quickly pour the overflow back into the bottle. I haven't wasted anything. And I know for sure I have a level teaspoon. And that works with the cups as well. You just have to use a funnel and a spouted pitcher, and you're good to go.
Good to go for sure. And Miss Deborah, what are some clever ways to identify spices, cans, or stove dials?
Okay, there are about 12 right answers to that question, depending on your comfort with technology, your budget. So if you have a high comfort with technology and you've got a lot of money, there are things like Way Around, Pen Friends, things that are electronic devices built for the blind that help you. And that's how I do my spices. I've got like a pen. You press the right buttons. They have special stickers that you can put on your spice bottles, and I can record in my own voice what it is. So every time I go back with that pen, know the pen friend. I know exactly what it is. But it can also be as simple as bump dots, which are little. What they are is basically cabinet bumpers and drawer bumpers where you don't want a lot of noise when you're closing your door. So they put these rubber things on, half domes on them. And so when the door slams, it hits that bumper. It's Those are what we use for bump dots. So I can put one on, let's say, garlic powder, because garlic powder is one ingredient. I never buy garlic salt. That's a waste of money. We can talk about that if you want to. But one dot on garlic powder. Then I have onion powder, which I tend to use a lot, and I put 2 bump dots on there. And you may say, "Well, that's only one ingredient." But I say, "Well, onion powder has 2 O's." And so that's how I do it. I assign meaning. I can do this with rubber bands. I can do it with something called wiki sticks. There are a whole lot of clever techniques that people, and not only braille's also an excellent way to identify spices and bottles, but there are a lot of different levels with technology to help you with that. And one other thing I'll mention, have you heard about the Meta Ray-Ban smart glasses?
No.
Oh, you need to
Mm.
look that up. You're an influencer, and that's amazing.
What is
They
all about?
so it's a pair of sunglasses made by Ray-Ban, so
Hmm.
they look normal,
Yes.
and they have a camera in above the left eye where the arm meets the front. They have microphones in the nose piece, and then the earphones are in the arms behind my ears. They're not blocking my hearing, but they're
Yes.
using bone conduction so I can hear what's going on. And they're meant for influencers so that you can take a quick video hands free, or you can take a quick picture without pulling out your phone. It works with your phone, but the the glasses. So I can hold something in my hand and say, "Hey Meta, look and tell me what the directions are for this recipe." And if I have the right side showing, it'll tell me if I don't. And it'll say, "Oh, you need to add 2 eggs and 2 cups of this and 2 cups of that." My artificial intelligence will tell me, not another person, but artificial intelligence. It's pretty amazing the technology available to the blind and visually impaired.
Interesting tech
Mhm.
for our, well, for our generation, especially for the, well, generations to come. For sure, they will more develop that technology to make more and more.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if I had to go blind, I'm living in the right age because 40 years ago, none of this would have been available to me. It's all relatively new. It's RFID, radio frequency ID is how the pen friend works, and other technologies. It's the way around. It's pretty amazing what's available to us now.
Miss Deborah, how do you refrain cooking from a chore to an empowering act to self care?
Um, for a lot of us, many of us, cooking throughout the generations, throughout the years, cooking has been a way we show love to our family and friends. Cooking them a good meal. I make the Thanksgiving, I make the Hanukkah, I make, the best food, and people are, and it's part of my pride, and it's part of why people come to my home. And there are many, many, many people like this. Or maybe you're a griller and you did the 4th of July and Memorial Day and always did the grilling. And now, because of age related vision loss, now you can't do it anymore. And so it's been interesting to watch people who thought they could no longer do that anymore. That was no longer going to be part of their identity or their life. Now they can find their way back into the kitchen or find their way back in front of the grill because from some of the things I've described to you, that you can see that the techniques and tools aren't that complicated. They really aren't. They're
Yes.
kind of simple. They'll stand the test of time, but will help people to be able to return to the cooking that they loved.
Miss Deborah, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and mental health 101. Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Miss Deborah, where can listeners or viewers find communities or training to build these skills?
So, Daniel, you are a very busy man. I'm exhausted just listening to all the projects you're doing. But people can contact their state commissions for the blind. There is a national organization called the American Council of the Blind and the National Federation of the Blind, which are blind organizations run by blind people to help effect legislature. And they have all of these have different things on cooking and stuff like that. Any topics of interest to blind people. But if you want to find more about the Blind Kitchen, go to theblindkitchen.com, and that's where I've gathered all the information that I've been able to find. I didn't develop it all myself. I found it when I was in culinary school and stuff when I had to solve problems. But go to theblindkitchen.com, and we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, and we have a YouTube channel as well. So I'm a follower of you, Daniel.
Thank you so much, Miss Debra Erickson. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please again invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your projects, your business, or wherever, anything that you're doing right now?
Yeah, well, I do workshops, I do public speaking. I'm now working on ways to get blind children with vision loss back into the kitchen, doing a curriculum. So, yeah, visit us at theblindkitchen.com, and there's a lot of ways you can follow us and find out about us.
Miss Deborah, we salute you for empowering us. And I hope you will always come back to all my podcasts and let's talk about your empowering story. So, Miss Deborah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Yes, and people, please support Miss Debra Erickson because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering story to come, more and more empowering business for sure to come. Miss Debra, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.